You have been holding on so tightly that your hands are shaking. Maybe not physically, but somewhere inside you, right now, there is a desire you have been gripping with such ferocity, such desperate intensity, that your entire emotional life has organized itself around whether or not this one thing arrives. You think about it in the morning. You check for signs of it during the day. You lie in bed at night running calculations, adjusting timelines, wondering what you did wrong, wondering what you should do differently, wondering why it hasn't come yet when you have done everything you were told to do. You have visualized, you have affirmed, you have felt the feelings. You have written it down, spoken it aloud, believed it with everything you have. And still, the thing sits at a distance, visible but untouchable, like something behind glass that you can see but never quite reach. And here is the part that will be difficult to hear. The glass is not between you and the thing you want. The glass is being generated by you, by the very intensity of your wanting, by the white-knuckle grip you have mistaken for dedication. The force you have been applying to bring this thing closer is the exact force that holds it away. And until you understand why, until you understand the precise mechanism that makes this true, you will keep pushing harder against a door that only opens when you step back. This is what detachment actually means, and it is nothing like what you think. Let us start with the version of detachment that most people have heard, because it is the version that causes the most confusion and the most resistance. Someone tells you that you need to let go. You need to release your attachment. You need to stop wanting it so badly. And everything inside you recoils. Because to you, letting go sounds like giving up. It sounds like abandoning the thing you care about most. It sounds like someone asking you to pretend you do not want what you clearly, obviously, desperately want. And so you reject the advice entirely, or worse, you try to perform detachment while secretly clinging harder than ever, adding a new layer of tension on top of the original one because now you are stressed about the wanting itself. This surface understanding of detachment is not wrong, but it is so incomplete that it might as well be. Telling someone to let go without explaining the mechanics of why attachment repels what they want is like telling someone to stop drowning without teaching them to swim. The instruction is technically correct. It is also completely useless without the deeper knowledge underneath it. So here is what detachment actually is at its core. It is not the absence of desire. It is the absence of need. And the distance between those two words, desire and need, is the distance between the life you are living and the life you keep trying to create. Desire is clean. Desire is a signal. It is your consciousness identifying something that resonates with who you are becoming. It is directional. It points you toward expansion, toward growth, toward experiences that match the frequency of your evolving self. Desire does not clutch. It does not beg. It does not pace the floor at midnight wondering why the thing has not arrived. Desire says, "That, I would welcome that." And then it opens its hands. Need is something else entirely. Need is desire that has been contaminated by fear. It is desire plus the belief that you are incomplete without the thing. It is the conviction that your happiness, your safety, your worth, your okayness as a human being is conditional on this specific outcome arriving in this specific form by this specific time. Need does not open its hands. Need closes them into fists. And a closed fist, no matter how tightly it grips, cannot receive anything. Picture it this way. You are standing on a beach and you reach down and scoop a handful of sand. If your hand stays open, relaxed, soft, the sand rests in your palm. It stays. It is yours. But the moment fear enters, the moment you think, "I might lose this," and you clench your fingers around it, the sand begins to pour through the gaps. The harder you squeeze, the faster it escapes. Your grip, which felt like protection, was the mechanism of loss all along. Not because the sand wanted to leave, but because the physics of the situation made it impossible for a closed fist to hold what an open palm could carry effortlessly. Your relationship with everything you want works this way. Every single thing: money, love, health, recognition, peace. The open hand receives, the clenched fist repels, and most people have been making fists for so long they have forgotten what it feels like to hold anything with softness. Now let us go deeper into why this mechanism exists. Because understanding that attachment pushes things away is useful, but understanding why it pushes things away is what gives you the power to actually stop doing it. Everything you experience in your outer world is a reflection of your inner state. This is not a belief you need to adopt. It is an observable pattern you can verify in your own life if you are honest enough to look. When you feel abundant inside, opportunities seem to appear. When you feel contracted and afraid, problems seem to multiply. When you are relaxed and at ease in a social setting, people are drawn to you. When you are anxious and performing, they pull away. The outer world does not operate independently of your inner world. It is a mirror, and the mirror does not have preferences. It does not decide to show you something pleasant or unpleasant. It simply reflects, with absolute precision, the signal you are broadcasting. Now consider what signal attachment broadcasts. When you are attached to an outcome, when your emotional stability depends on whether this thing arrives, what is the dominant message radiating from your entire being? It is not the message of someone who has what they want. It is the message of someone who does not have it. The very intensity of the attachment is proof to the mirror that the thing is absent. You do not desperately need something you already possess. You do not anxiously check for signs of something that is already sitting in your living room. The desperation itself is a declaration of absence, and the mirror, doing what mirrors do, reflects that absence back to you as more experiences of not having. This is the mechanism. It is not punishment. It is not the universe being cruel or testing you. It is physics. Your inner state generates a frequency. That frequency attracts its match. And the frequency of desperate attachment is identical to the frequency of not having. They are the same vibration wearing different clothes. One feels like determination. The other feels like lack. But to the mirror, to the field that organizes your reality, they are indistinguishable. Both say the same thing. This is not here. I need this to be here. Something is missing. And the field, receiving that instruction, continues to produce a reality in which something is missing. This is why people who seem not to care often get the very thing that others are killing themselves to achieve. It is not that the universe rewards indifference. It is that the person who does not need the outcome is broadcasting a completely different signal. Their frequency says, I am whole. I am complete. I would welcome this, but I am not diminished by its absence. And the mirror, reading that signal, reflects back a reality that matches wholeness. A reality in which good things arrive, not because they were chased down and captured, but because there was nothing in the person's energy field pushing them away. You have seen this pattern. You have seen it in the person who stops looking for love and then meets someone remarkable. You have seen it in the entrepreneur who stops obsessing over revenue and then watches the numbers climb. You have seen it in your own life, in moments where you gave up on something, truly released it, and then it appeared almost immediately as if it had been standing just outside the door the entire time, waiting for you to stop blocking the entrance. Those moments were not coincidences. They were demonstrations of the law you are learning right now, the law that says your open hand is your greatest power, and your clenched fist is your greatest obstacle. Now here's the part that almost no one discusses. And it is the part that determines whether you actually integrate this principle or simply add it to the growing list of things you understand intellectually but cannot seem to practice. Detachment is not a technique. You cannot perform it. You cannot fake it. You cannot say the words, I am detached, while your nervous system is vibrating with the frequency of someone who is absolutely not detached, and expect the universe to be fooled. The mirror does not read your words. It reads your state, and your state is determined not by what you tell yourself, but by what you feel at the deepest level of your body. This is why so many people attempt detachment and fail. They try to let go mentally while holding on emotionally. They instruct their mind to release the outcome, but their stomach is still tight. Their chest is still heavy. Their sleep is still disrupted by the low hum of anxiety about whether this thing will ever arrive. The mind says, "I have let go." The body says, "I am terrified." And the body always wins, because the body is the transmitter. The body is the broadcasting station. The body is what the field reads when it decides what to reflect back to you. True detachment is not a mental exercise. It is a nervous system state. It is what happens when your body genuinely settles into the felt experience of being okay regardless of the outcome. Not the idea of being okay. The actual, physical, somatic experience of okayness. Shoulders dropped, breath deep and slow, belly soft, jaw unclenched, a quietness in the chest where the frantic monitoring used to live. This is what detachment feels like in the body, and this feeling, not the concept, is what changes your broadcast signal and begins to reorganize your reality. So the question becomes, how do you get your body to a state it has never reliably been in? How do you teach your nervous system to feel safe in the absence of the thing it has decided it cannot live without? The answer is not a single dramatic act of surrender. It is a daily, sometimes hourly practice of redirecting your sense of completion away from the external outcome and back toward yourself. Here is what that looks like practically. Each time you notice the familiar surge of attachment, the checking, the hoping, the anxious scanning for signs, you pause. You do not fight the feeling. Fighting it gives it energy and makes it louder. You simply notice it the way you would notice a sound outside your window. You register its presence without granting it authority. And then you ask yourself one question. Not, when will this arrive? Not, what am I doing wrong? But this, can I be okay right now, in this exact moment, without this thing having arrived yet? And you do not answer the question with your mind. You answer it with your body. You take a breath. You feel your feet on the ground. You look around the room and notice what is actually present. The warmth of the light, the steadiness of the floor beneath you, the simple, undramatic fact that in this specific moment, right now, you are breathing, you are alive, and nothing is actually wrong. Not in this second. In this second, you are fine. This practice sounds almost insultingly simple, and it is simple. But simple is not the same as easy, because your conditioned mind will fight this redirect with everything it has. It will tell you that if you stop worrying, you will lose your edge. It will tell you that the anxiety is productive, that the monitoring is necessary, that relaxing your grip even slightly is an invitation for disaster. These objections are not wisdom. They are the voice of a nervous system that has confused vigilance with safety, that has learned, probably very early in your life, that the only way to protect yourself from disappointment is to never stop bracing for it. But here is what your nervous system does not yet understand. The bracing is not protecting you from disappointment. The bracing is creating the very conditions that lead to disappointment. It is the clenched fist. It is the sand escaping through your fingers. Every moment you spend in the contracted state of anxious attachment is a moment you are broadcasting the frequency of not having. And the mirror is faithfully, precisely, without malice, reflecting that frequency back to you as continued absence. This principle reaches into every corner of your life once you see it clearly. It is not limited to one desire or one category of experience. It is operating everywhere, all the time, in every domain you care about. In relationships, the person who needs their partner to behave a certain way in order to feel secure creates the very insecurity they fear. The monitoring, the questioning, the constant search for reassurance. These behaviors do not communicate love. They communicate doubt. And the partner, consciously or unconsciously, begins to mirror that doubt back, not because they have done anything wrong, but because the energy between two people is always a conversation, and the dominant signal is always answered. In finances, the person who checks their bank account with dread every morning, who budgets from a place of fear rather than intention, who hoards out of scarcity rather than saves out of wisdom, is not protecting themselves from financial difficulty. They are tuning their entire system to the frequency of not enough. And the mirror obliges. Unexpected expenses appear. Opportunities are missed. The money that arrives seems to leave just as quickly, as if it can feel the desperate grip waiting for it and refuses to stay. In health, the person who obsesses over symptoms, who catastrophizes every sensation, who lives in anticipatory fear of diagnosis, is not being proactive. They are flooding their nervous system with stress hormones that suppress the very immune function they are trying to protect. The fear of illness becomes a physiological environment hospitable to illness. The attachment to a specific health outcome produces the internal conditions most likely to prevent that outcome. In creativity and career, the person who needs external validation to feel that their work is worthwhile will produce work that carries the energetic signature of that need. The audience can feel it, even if they cannot name it. There is a subtle but unmistakable difference between work created from fullness and work created from hunger. One invites people in, the other silently begs them to stay. And the audience, responding to a signal they process below conscious awareness, gravitates toward the work that does not need them. Because that work carries the frequency of confidence, of completion, of something that exists because it had to, not because it was trying to earn love. Every area of your life is governed by this same dynamic. What you cling to, you repel. What you hold loosely, you attract. What you need, you push away. What you prefer without requiring, you magnetize. The principle does not change depending on the category. It operates with the same mechanical consistency across every dimension of human experience. So here is how you practice this daily, not as a technique you add to your morning routine, but as a fundamental shift in how you move through every moment. You keep your desires. You do not abandon them. You do not pretend they do not exist. The goal is not to become a person who wants nothing. The goal is to become a person who wants deeply and holds loosely, who can feel the full force of their desire without allowing that desire to become a statement about their current incompleteness. After you have clarified what you want, after you have felt the reality of it in your imagination, after you have let your body experience what it would feel like to already be living in that version of your life, you do something that every instinct in you will resist. You hand the delivery over to something larger than your conscious mind. You stop managing the timeline. You stop auditing the process. You stop checking the tracking number on a package that the universe has already confirmed is on its way. Think of it this way. You walk into a restaurant. You sit down. You place your order with the waiter. The waiter writes it down and walks toward the kitchen. Now what do? You do not follow the waiter into the kitchen. You do not stand over the chef's shoulder asking why the meal is not ready yet. You do not cancel the order and place a new one every 5 minutes because the wait is making you anxious. You sit. You sip your water. You enjoy the conversation at the table. You trust that the kitchen is doing its work because that is what kitchens do. And when the food arrives, it arrives. Not because you managed every step of the process, but because you placed a clear order and then allowed the system to fulfill it without your interference. Your interference is not helping. It never was. Every time you check for signs, every time you ask the universe for a progress report, every time you spiral into doubt because the timeline does not match your expectations, you are walking back into the kitchen, interrupting the chef, and slowing down the very process you are desperate to accelerate. The practice is this. Notice when you are walking into the kitchen. Notice when your mind starts its familiar loop of checking, worrying, strategizing, controlling, and gently, with compassion, without making yourself wrong for it, walk back to the table. Sit down. Return to the present moment. Return to the life that is already here, already full of things you once wished for, already rich with experiences you are too distracted to appreciate because your eyes are fixed on the kitchen door. There is something I must be honest with you about. because this is where most teachings on detachment become dishonest by omission. The process of genuinely releasing your attachment to an outcome will, at some point, feel like grief. It will feel like loss, not because you are losing the thing you want, but because you are losing the version of yourself whose identity was built around needing it. You have spent months, maybe years, organizing your emotional life around this desire. It has become the central plot of your internal story. I am the person who is waiting for this. I am the person who is working toward this. I am the person who will finally be complete when this arrives. When you release the attachment, you are not just releasing a preference about the future. You are releasing an identity. And identity death, even when it is voluntary, even when it is in service of your growth, activates the same emotional circuitry as actual loss. You may feel empty for a period. You may feel directionless. You may feel a strange kind of sadness that does not seem to have a clear source. This is not a sign that you have made a mistake. This is the old self dissolving. This is the space between who you were and who you are becoming. And this space, uncomfortable as it is the most fertile ground in your entire psychological landscape. It is the void from which all new realities emerge. The caterpillar does not transform into the butterfly through a smooth, pleasant upgrade. It dissolves first, completely, into an unrecognizable substance that looks like nothing. And from that apparent nothing, an entirely new form is assembled. You are in the dissolution. You are in the fertile void. And the temptation to grab back the old identity, to resume the familiar pattern of anxious attachment because at least that felt like something, will be enormous. Resist it. Not with force, with patience, with the quiet understanding that the emptiness is not the absence of progress. It is the precondition for it. There will come a moment, and you will not be able to predict when it arrives, where something inside you settles, not collapses, settles, like sediment in water that has finally been left undisturbed long enough to sink to the bottom, leaving the water clear. You will notice that you have gone hours, maybe a full day, without the old anxious loop running. You will realize that you thought about the thing you wanted, and the thought did not carry the familiar charge of desperation. It carried something else, something quieter, something that felt like trust. This is the signal, not the arrival of the thing itself. This feeling, this inner settling. This is the moment your broadcast signal changes. This is when the mirror receives a new instruction. Not, I need this and I am afraid it will never come. But I am whole, I am at peace, and I welcome whatever form my expansion takes. And from this signal, from this clean, coherent, uncontaminated frequency of inner completion, your reality begins to reorganize. Not on your timeline, not in the form you dictated, but with a precision and an intelligence that will make you realize your conscious mind was never capable of orchestrating anything this elegant. The thing arrives, or something better arrives, or the desire itself transforms into something you could not have imagined from your previous vantage point. And it arrives not because you finally did enough. It arrives because you finally stopped doing the one thing that was preventing it. You stopped gripping, you opened your hand, and what was always meant to rest there settled gently into your palm, as if it had been waiting all along for you to make room. The sand does not want to escape. The love does not want to avoid you. The money does not resist you. The health, the peace, the recognition, none of it is hiding from you. It is all simply waiting for the one condition that must be met before it can arrive: an open hand, a quiet heart, and the steady, unreasonable, unshakable trust that you were never as far from what you wanted as your fear made it seem.